All Access, an inside look at what it takes to operate Iowa's largest entertainment and convention facilities. This is Iowa Events Center All Access from Iowa Everywhere.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of All Access presented by the Iowa Event Center here on the Iowa Everywhere Podcast Network. Matt Van Winkle and special guest Chris Connolly joining us for an episode. Adam, I think, is down in Florida at a conference, I think. Is that right?
He's in sunny Orlando, so happy to fill in for him. Good to see you, Matt.
Good to see you, too. We've got a fun show today. We're going to have a special guest, a past employee of the Iowa Event Center, Zach Lough. Works out in Washington, D.C. as an event manager now. He was a big part of the Presidential Inauguration, the events that happened around the Capital One Arena. Excited to talk to him, Chris, and it's fun to see your past employees and what they're up to, so we'll catch up with him in just a little bit. But hey, you guys had some cool show announcements this past weekend, and those are on sale now. Shinedown and Jason Aldean coming to Wells Fargo Arena here pretty soon.
Yeah, it's great. It was a busy week last week, as you mentioned. So Tuesday after the MLK holiday, we announced Shinedown with Beartooth and Morgan Wade. That's Friday, April 25th, as you mentioned, on sale now, HiVTix.com. And then Jason Aldean, a little bit further out, but that's confirmed for September 19th at Wells Fargo Arena, again on sale now. Nate Smith and Ray Lynn with Jason Aldean. Jason Aldean's played Wells Fargo Arena a number of times and obviously in the market a number of times. And what a great performer. So two really big shows, Shinedown, Jason Aldean, announced in the same week, on sale at the same time last Friday. So really excited to see them come up.
Yeah, I think Adam was saying 5 shows he's played at Wells Fargo Arena. This will be
Sounds
6,
right.
I believe. So I think only he said Kenny Chesney's played the arena more times than Jason Aldean. And you'd probably encourage people to get those tickets soon, right? That's probably going to sell pretty quick, right?
I would, and two really good dates, right? Shinedown on a Friday night and Aldean's on a Friday night too in September. So no, I think two great dates, two really, really good shows. Special guest on both will be really good. And it's kind of cool. Like traditionally speaking, around the holidays, things kind of get quiet a little bit. And then, boom, you get towards the end of January and then the show announcements start to come out. So last week was exciting and two really good on sales.
It's got the Des Moines Home and Garden Show coming up just in a couple of weeks, February 13th through 16th, Thursday through Sunday. Spread out all across the Iowa Event Center. I know it's an event you guys bring back every single year. And then the Iowa Wild are in action this week. A lot of games. They had a busy week last week. I know they had the concert. Did you get to attend the concert at all or hear how it went?
I didn't. I wasn't able to attend on Saturday, but man, they had a great week.
Yeah.
Saturday night, Dylan Scott was the country artist performer. Had over 10,000 people in the door on Saturday night. And just in general, throughout the complex, we had a lot going on with the Bike Expo and we had a dinner up in our ballroom. So it was a great weekend. And like, as you mentioned, the Wild are back this week, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Yep. We got the Wolves coming back in early February, and then just a lot of activity coming up over the next couple of weeks, including the high school state tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. You get You had the Iowa Bike Expo. The RAGBRAI announcement was released. I believe they're taking that northern route this year. So I believe you can go on their website to see exactly all the stops. Trying to think of the closest one to Des Moines. Iowa Falls, I think, is one of the stops.
I think so, yeah.
Cedar Falls. So cool. Check that out. Cool. Well, definitely a busy time around the arena. As you mentioned, you're starting to get some more of those concerts announced for 2025. And I would assume probably some more coming down the pike too, yeah?
Yeah, I would tell people keep their eyes peeled. We'll have some more announcements coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks, some cool stuff. Hopefully some things that are new that people haven't seen before. But no, the activity is really strong. It's been busy. It's a busy time of year.
So before Adam headed down to sunny Orlando, he actually set up a cool interview. You want to introduce our guest, Chris?
Yeah, sure. Zach Lough, who now works in Washington, D.C., he used to work for us at the Iowa Event Center and has actually been with our company for a while now. Zach here in Des Moines, when he worked for the Iowa Event Center, was an event manager. And Zach did such a great job that he graduated to a senior event manager and then had this really cool opportunity in Washington. So it's great to see him today. Great to see him doing well. And he's going to be able to talk about a pretty big event that he helped put on last week. So pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, here's our all-access interview with the event manager at the Capital One Center in Washington, D.C. with Zach Lough. Zach, I know you and Chris go back, but for our listeners that don't know much about your career, your start, tell us how you first got started working in events.
So I grew up with a grandfather and uncle who work in the arena and stadium event space at stadiums like in Nashville, where the Titan Stadium is, and United Center in Chicago with the Bulls and Blackhawks. So kind of got to see that sort of work in that industry, and I've always been a big sports fan, and thought it would just be cool to kind of get a behind the scenes look at those types of events. And so just tried to find my way to get into that space, and was lucky enough to do it at some pretty cool places, as you mentioned, and here I am.
Awesome. So talk about, we walked through your background going through each of those roles. It seems like each of those, you probably were in a different part of the country, learning about different type of events that come through. How did kind of each stop along the way to lead to where you are today, and how that kind of prepare you for this big overtaking you are currently out in DC?
Yeah, I started off as an intern for the All-State Sugar Bowl, which was pretty interesting because you're kind of putting all your efforts out a year just to one kind of giant big event with a few ancillary things throughout the year, but then transitioning over into arena management. Started off at a little smaller event center and arena in Enid, Oklahoma, and was able to kind of dive into anything there because, it's a smaller arena with a smaller staff, but you're still doing concerts and, regional conventions and stuff like that come through the area. So I was able to kind of hit the ground running and be able to learn tons of stuff just right off the bat there, which helped me as I progressed to larger spaces like the Iowa Event Center in Des Moines. Got to do a ton of those concerts and family shows that come in through there. Worked with the Iowa Wolves G League team a lot over the past 4 years there, and then even kind of got a little bit of preparation in the political landscape with all the Iowa caucus events and stuff like that goes around Des Moines and Iowa at that time.
Chris, it's got to be cool for you to see your past employees kind of going off and doing these big things out in DC. We'll kind of get into the big one here in just a little bit, but it's got to be cool to see guys like Zach taking off and learning what they have from you guys and taking those to other markets as well.
It's great. I mean, at the Iowa Event Center, you see everything, right? Like as Zach mentioned, you have concerts, you have family shows. On the convention center side, you have meetings, you have weddings, you have conventions. And, again, as Zach mentioned, like with the Iowa caucuses being first in the nation and so much emphasis, like that's where that starts, that whole election cycle, right? So it really starts in Iowa, in the capital city in Des Moines. And for us at the Iowa Event Center, we've been fortunate, right? Like we host a media filing center for the caucuses every 4 years. And you have presidential rallies and debates, and it's really a good training ground. And for somebody like Zach, who was an event manager and then bumped up to senior event manager, and then now he's at a professional building, it's fantastic. We love to see that kind of growth.
Absolutely. Well, Zach, you were busy this past week. We had President Trump hosted his inaugural parade at the Capital One Arena. That was obviously a big overtaking for you and your team. Before we talk about that specific event, talk about just Capital One Arena and the building itself. What type of events you normally hold in there?
Yeah, so we have 3 tenant teams, which is the main events, Georgetown men's basketball, and then the Washington Wizards and Washington Capitals NBA and NHL teams. So I get to help out a lot with the Capitals team and those game days at the arena. And then it's, one of the busiest arenas in the country with 3 tenant teams, and then you're trying to fill any other date with concerts or shows or any sort of large scale events that happen around the DC area. And so just being able to kind of experience everything. We just finished up with Monster Jam, which I know has been in Wells Fargo Arena before, and getting to do some of those larger concerts that tour all throughout the country, and being able to experience, professional sports has been really cool for me in my career, and Capital One Arena has been able to provide that exciting opportunity.
So sports and events obviously take up a lot of your time working in the arena, but with this inaugural parade that you all hosted at the arena, and I believe some other events probably that happened in and around the arena around that time. Obviously, being out in D.C., you are surrounded by politics. You can't probably escape it. But for you to get your hands in and actually be involved with an event of that capacity, just talk about that process of what went into basically turning your arena into this large political event.
Yeah, I was kind of familiar with the victory rally that was scheduled. We kind of learned about that right after the new year. We weren't sure what we were going to kind of see on the inaugural weekend, but got word of wanting to host the rally at the arena. So kind of dove right into meeting with the inaugural committee, the production crew that they were working with, and then obviously the U.S. Secret Service, trying to, come up with what sort of their goals and vision was for this rally, and how we were able to kind of best prepare for that and help them make it a reality. We have those 3 tennis teams I mentioned, and we actually had 3 of their games the 3 days before the rally was scheduled. So there was going to be no load-in days, no easy kind of to get into this. It was going to be one event right after the other. So just a ton of meetings and walkthroughs, trying to get everyone all on the same page, making sure that all the production team's plans and the U.S. Secret Service plans kind of meshed well together, and was able to get everyone on the same timeline. And then, as we got closer and kind of saw how the weather was shaping up, then we got sort of another curveball thrown in with the actual inauguration day activities and parades were moving indoors, and we were going to be the location at Capital One Arena.
We know out here in the Midwest, the weather can throw a wrinkle into a lot of plans, and things have to move indoors. And Chris, you guys know this, obviously, having to move events through in and out. You kind of know that pace, but something to this scale. Chris, have you been involved with anything like this on this type of scale with politics involved?
I actually have, just spending time in Philly and at the Wells Fargo Center there. We did, we've had some huge political events, not to the scale that Zach worked on, but even in Des Moines, like it's just with the Iowa caucuses and presidential debates, and even last Iowa caucus, we had a rally for Trump. Maybe an hour after that kind of closed, the polls closed. So we are familiar with it. Maybe not to the scale that Zach had to deal with, but honestly, it's everything he said. It's dealing with Homeland Security, the FBI, local law enforcement. And it's just communication, right? It's communication with staff, trying to meet their expectations. It's communication, coordination, and then really just getting out of the way and letting them do their thing. But no, what a great experience for Zach. And he did a great job for us. And I think that's the cool thing in Des Moines. You get to see a lot of that stuff on the arena side and the convention center side as well.
So Zach, specifically kind of day of stuff with the event on January 20th, what were some of the things that you were responsible for with that whole presidential parade as well?
Yeah, it was pretty much all hands on deck for the entire staff. We have I have another event manager that works alongside me, our director of event productions, and even our GM Darius Dunn and president of venues Jordan Silberman. They were all kind of right on top of things, and we were kind of there just really to whatever the inauguration committee team needed to make that rally and the parade a success. So it started with just a kind of a normal Trump rally where we have speakers on stage. There were some musical acts, Kid Rock and the Village People performed. You had a big crowd that were kind of just there to be there for that moment. And then after he gets done speaking at the rally, we kind of all went into changeover mode to get ready for the inaugural swearing in watch party and parade that was going to happen the next day. And so Chris mentioned communication. That's kind of a huge part of everything, because you're trying to get all the information from the inaugural committee and the production crew, the Secret Service, and be able to disseminate that out to everyone who's working at Capital One Arena. So making sure that the CSC, security guards, the guest experience ushers know what to expect, are prepared to welcome all the people coming into the arena who probably aren't from DC, have never been to Capital One Arena before. You're trying to get information out to the changeover crew as best you can, and there are probably some times where they were setting out chairs and it was being changed right as they were doing that, and they were having to adjust and be able to adapt as quickly as possible. Working with the stagehands, who probably didn't get any sleep for about 3 days, so big shout out to them, and just making sure that everyone was able to get the information they need to be able to put on the event in the best way, to put Capital One Arena kind of on the world stage, and make sure it was safe and welcoming for everybody.
Chris, maybe you can speak to this a little bit too, just from a building security standpoint. Obviously, you guys take that very seriously, working with local law enforcement. But Zach, when you're talking about a past president and all these important people in this building, a president who was, assassination attempt. It's like, I know there's been added security around all of his events. What is that relationship like? Maybe Chris, you can touch on this for Des Moines, and then Zach, maybe out in DC. Just what's that relationship like with local law enforcement as you guys make those preparations? Obviously, there has to be some, plans in place for any type of scenario that may happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in first, and in Des Moines, and again, we're fortunate, and Zach mentioned briefly CSC. So they're the yellow jacket security guards that you see on a lot of national events, right? They're a national security company, and we're fortunate in Des Moines that we have them here. They office out of Des Moines. They have many accounts throughout the state of Iowa, and in particular, Bob Swanson, who's the branch manager. I mean, he's got a great relationship with local law enforcement, Homeland Security, FBI. So this is a guy that's experienced. He does a great job, and really, he's the figurehead in this whole thing and the communication on the safety side. Because, Matt, you mentioned it. I mean, the safety piece is the biggest thing with events like this, right? That's first and foremost. And again, we're lucky with CSC being in-house here. They have those relationships. They kind of get us in line on what needs to happen. I mean, you're talking background checks, ingress, egress, certain entrance points, exit points, all that stuff. It's just a lot of coordination. And I think one of the keys that I would touch on, and in our world and what we do, I mean, Zach mentioned, it's like they didn't have weeks to prepare and set up the building for this, right? This is simply done overnight. And that's what we do. And that's why you have to have a really good staff. You have to have good communication. You have to have a good plan. And for all intents and purposes, and just watching what went on TV, it was phenomenal what happened in DC. And the building did a great job. And it's not easy. It really isn't. It's like, he's right. You don't get a lot of sleep. It's short term, and you got to get this stuff in. It's like that everywhere else. But no, I think the key thing really is safety, security. Again, with CSC on it, they have the experience, and I can't say enough good things about them. And I think that's really important for events like this.
Yeah, I think even we had a little bit of a wrinkle thrown in that, he was not the president on the 19th, and then he was the president when he came back on January 20th. So he had even more security on a whole nother level the second day. We actually had a lot of staff staying in a hotel right across the street from the arena. But to get to the arena on the 20th, we kind of had to walk about 6 blocks all the way around to get to the checkpoint and enter, because of how the security barricades were set up. And then, so it's just kind of a testament to our staff to be able to kind of work through all those different changes. We have a great security staff who worked with the U.S. Secret Service to make sure that, we were able to do our job while also making sure that the Secret Service had everything they needed to keep the event safe and for all attending, and obviously the dignitaries arriving. So it's a lot of just kind of moving on the fly and trying to do your best to make everything a success.
Talking with Zach Lough, the event manager at the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., former senior event manager at the Iowa Event Center. Zach, you talk about what kind of got you into this, wanting to be kind of in and around sports, and obviously, those are the things, kind of, Chris, that you guys host concerts, events, sporting events that kind of lead you to some of these bigger events that really do prepare you for any type of scenario that may be thrown at you. Because I know, Chris, you guys are always looking to bring in new type of events and how to handle different things. You're working with different, touring crews and stuff like that. So, Zach, I'm just curious, as you've worked in these multiple different events, is there any event or anything that stands out in your career that's kind of been the coolest or one that's most excited you that you've been able to work on?
Yeah, probably. I was lucky enough to be at Wells Fargo Arena when the NCAA men's basketball tournament was held there. As someone who's watched that tournament every year, fills out probably way too many brackets for each one. Being able to kind of go through all the planning and see how the NCAA puts that on, how they put that on at a arena and city like Des Moines was really cool. Got to see some pretty cool matchups and games over that weekend, and being able to be a part of that was something that I always wanted to do, and was lucky enough to be able to check that off my list. And and then just, you never really expect to have a sort of a presidential inaugural event when you get into this building. I think the last time the inauguration moved inside was 1985, 40 years ago. There are a few people still at Capital One Arena that, worked at the old Capitol Center in Maryland and have been able to say they've done two of those, but I got to do my one this year and got to check another one off the list there.
Definitely provided for some interesting visuals, right? I mean, even talking about the swearing in being inside, Chris. I mean, I don't know if you got to watch it or not, but really was so much different than what we're used to seeing. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I did get a chance to see it, and Zach's right. Like, you just add in all these different wrinkles. Like, it's Donald Trump wasn't the incumbent president, right? But he'd already served, and it's different security measures from day to day, short turnaround, and then as the weather, it was going to be cold and everything did have to move in. I don't know. It's just really being nimble and flexible. And it's like, that's what we do in our business, right? Like, there's almost no answer that's a no. It's a yes, or we'll figure out a way to make it happen. And you do. And it's great, because if you can do stuff like that, the more opportunities you'll get of this nature. And that's a great one for Zach, and it's a good one to be a part of. And, I'm proud of him. Like, he did a great job here in Des Moines, and we do a lot. And then to be able to see somebody move on and work at a professional arena like that in Washington, and then be a part of an event like that's really cool to see. But yeah, it's a lot, Matt. There's a lot of moving parts in our world, and we figure out a way to make it all work.
Awesome.
Our president of venues put in our event chat that the word of the day was patience, and I think was something everyone needed to hear, because we were all probably pretty tired, but it was what we needed on that day.
Absolutely. Well, Zach, thanks for kind of peeling back the curtain on this. We sit back and kind of watch all this stuff from home, and Chris, people come down to Wells Fargo Arena and take in events and don't really know everything that goes on behind the scenes to make things possible. But it's cool to kind of hear these inside stories and how these events do come together. So, Zach, we appreciate your time, and we miss you here in Des Moines, but you're welcome anytime back. If you want to come, Jason Aldean concert's coming up. If you want to come back, I'm sure Chris would invite you down.
Yep, you can always figure that out.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Well, Chris, like I said, it's cool to get it behind the scenes with Zach, and like you said, you guys worked together for so many years and really helped put on some great events here in Des Moines, and now doing great things out in DC as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see him doing so well. It's interesting. It's like you can kind of see from his career, like he started at a lower level and then just kept building up. And even here in Des Moines at the Iowa Event Center, he started as an event manager and did such a good job. And we could see the potential in him that while he was here, he moved up to senior event manager. And then, of course, he had the opportunity in Washington to work at Capitals Arena, which is it's a great building. It's a professional building with the Wizards, the Capitals, Georgetown basketball. It really is great to see him doing well, and we had no doubt that he'd be successful, but really cool. And he couldn't be part of a bigger event, and with such a short turnaround, it's like, again, by everything that we saw, they did such a good job, and he was a big part of that. So that's really neat to see.
Fun stuff we get to bring you here on All Access presented by the Iowa Event Center. Chris, thanks for stepping in for Adam this week. It was fun.
You're welcome. Always like to be part of it.
Awesome. And thank you to the Iowa Event Center for their support of Iowa Everywhere. We'll see you next time on All Access.